Afternoon. Let's call this meeting of the work session together, CPU, and point in time, ask that the roll be taken.
Roll call. Wakes.
Here.
Vinnie Henry.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Groneman.
Here.
Haley.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. For our agenda this afternoon, I would ask if any questions about the agenda that's been presented, or if anyone has any discussion as to the items that are on the agenda. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Rose, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Vinnie Henry.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. So, guess we move at this point in time to our update. GM update.
There was a public works and safety meeting scheduled for me to attend, but it was canceled. So nothing to report.
I did attend the Economic Development and Finance Committee. And it was pretty interesting. There was a LIHTC proposal that was not passed through committee, but everything else went through. A what? A LIHTC project. LIHTC.
Let me
Low
explain
income.
that, and thank you for explaining it to me.
Low income tax, it was for a project near 72nd and State next to the community college. And but the committee didn't pass it through.
I just didn't understand what LIHTC.
Yeah, we had to share that with a few people since our meeting. So yeah, but that was one of the reasons why they didn't want it next to community college. Because the investors, though, they would receive the tax credits every year after the turned over to them by the builder. Type of low income residents in that area they thought would bring unwanted activity there.
Okay. Thank you. The other meetings, interim meetings, or in attendance therein? No other further reports? All right, thank you. At this point in time, turn it over to GM Ash.
I don't have any comments. A couple of us did attend the legislative rally in Washington, DC last week, and we went kind of in cohort with KMU and some other city members, really just prodding our representatives to keep in front of them the grant money and us making sure those things get followed through with and come back to our communities, because it does mean so much to the communities like ours to get money like that we don't have to solicit from the community by way of rates and then put back. So that was kind of one of our main focuses. And KMU did a really good job of organizing it. Kimberly Spotty, she fell ill and was unable to make the trip with us last minute, but everything went real well. And we left there pretty optimistic about the process.
Were the senators and representatives there, or were they on leave?
No, they were there.
Were they there?
Yeah, we met with a number of them face to face. A couple of them were on the floor taking care of business during our time frame with them, but a number of their senior team were able to meet with us. A lot of people that we're already familiar with, that we do communicate with regularly when we're in pursuit of these things and other items. So Representative Davids has a time later this month. She's going to be here, wants to come come down and take some pictures and things. So that's all real encouraging. The more we can keep our business and our needs in front of them and become first name basis with these people, the more familiar they are when something crosses their desk and we're asking for some assistance.
How's that consortium work? Or is there a group beyond David's, like maybe Mr. Moran or whatever the other one, Marshall?
Marshall.
Yeah,
We met with Marshall himself.
okay.
He was part of our meeting. We typically meet with Moran. He's a big fan of KMU. He was on the floor during our time period, so we met with one of his senior people, Seth, who is a good advocate for BPU. He really knows our community and does a good job with our business. So Moran didn't make it in. Derek Schmidt was on the floor. We passed him in the hallway and he waved, said, guys, I know, I'm sorry, but the bell rang and I gotta go. So, and then we met face to face with Sharice and I believe that was it for face to face meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But since we take a kind of a cohort from the entire state, try to split the group up, people with same reps go one way and other folks go the other way. And then if we have a common, we try to facilitate that too with the large group, but I think this time there was 14 or 15 of us. So, and then two senior, Brad Mears, the CEO of KMU, and Craig Dumars, who's working for them now. And so they're on first name basis, pretty much all those people. And that's where I'm trying to get for us. So I've achieved that a little bit with a couple of them, but certainly got work to do a couple of them.
well, no doubt you'll be there in record time on first name with all of them. The other question at some point I'd like for us to find out is what changes at DOE, Department of Energy, that are anticipated, how they might affect or disaffect us, and the congressional delegation might, through you or with you, help us to better understand, some policy changes that may happen to us down the road.
There.
So,
Another thing was the workforce disruption.
Can you turn on your mic, please?
One of the other things we discussed was the workforce disruption. And, there's a lot of federal workers that work for places like WAPA and, we import energy from them. And so what happens if there's a shortage of work? And we're short resource because of these kinds of things. And it really didn't dawn on a few of them that here in Kansas, we take hydro resource, right? So it's a pretty good education for us and them alike when we get together.
all right, thank you. Further? Okay. All right.
I guess I would turn it over to Vice President. She did send along a summary document, kind of what the policy committee meeting was about. And I think the real intention here is to bring the full board up to speed on what they discussed.
Vice President Mulvaney here.
That's right. Thank you. So 3 topics in particular that we discussed. And they're all laid out on the document that was included in your folder. So they're there in front of you. I think they're there on the screen as well. As you all know, the board currently meets the first and third Wednesday of each month for its regular session of the board meeting at 6 o'clock here, which is the first Wednesday, I guess. And so we discussed, potentially, because the charter only requires us to actually have one public regular session every month. Is that right, Angie?
That's correct.
Okay, and so the thought is, and as, we're obviously here meeting in a work session tonight. And also, we've got committee meetings and other things, and, we try to fit work sessions in where we can to talk about things a little bit more in depth with the board. Obviously, work sessions have to be, public as well. But, sometimes we go really in depth into topics or some, last year was a really good example of a lot of things, right? We had the IRP on the agenda. We had the, the general manager search on the agenda. I know there was one other major thing last year and it escapes me right now because I want to forget 2024, but
Policy update.
the customer service policy update. Thank you, Stevie. I can't believe I forgot that. And I would never forgive you. But, so we have all those things we're trying to fit in. We're trying to be cognizant of, everyone's time, including the BPU team's time. And, I think the thought process is if we go to one Wednesday a month where we're having a regular session at 6 o'clock, we could potentially utilize the second Wednesday of the month for work session material, for committee meetings, if we needed to have committee meetings that week, as well. And those are things where we wouldn't have to hurry up and, oh my gosh, we've got to hurry up and scurry out of here at 6 o'clock or 5:59 and get in the next room, get to the regular session, and have that. But we can have elongated time. Maybe we're able to start a little bit later to accommodate, folks' daytime schedules as well. But, and whatever. So that's the thought process behind it. But I think the policy committee, which is made up of us three, we are all in favor of this and wanted to move it to the full board for a bigger discussion. Mary did attend our policy committee meeting. Thank you. And so she's heard this whole discussion. So really it's you two that, because I think Mary, you were in favor of it as well.
I am.
And, this language is just, proposed language to replace in the board rules of procedure book now that we updated late 2023. So to update it with this, and I put something in here about a work session, but honestly, and I could hear in my head, Angie telling me, I don't know that you really need that in there. And I haven't even talked to her about this and she's nodding her head, yes. So I don't know that we need that to put it in because there's another section after this that allows us to have, I think it's called special sessions. That allows us to have special sessions whenever the board needs to have a special session. So I don't know that the second paragraph is necessary, but obviously, David and Stevie, your thoughts on sort of moving to this transitioning over to this style or this
Format.
Thank you, format versus what we do today. So thoughts, comments?
Steve?
I appreciate you enabling me to participate because I don't like it. I mean, I think that using my time from work, gives me a rationale as to why I should get a raise. No, I mean.
You're still in my thumb.
No, I like it. Yeah.
I can see where it would be a really positive thing during, say, budget, when we have a presentation that would normally happen in work session, and then we normally have to run out the door at 6 o'clock. If that session goes to 7:15, we're still here and we're good. So I could see how that is a good thing for those things that might just take a little bit longer in work session.
Thank you for the comprehensive review of where we've been for the three of you bringing this to us. I certainly think it's a good idea and one to further examine. As you've outlined, and as we all know, sometimes it is inconvenient, especially rushing in for something and then rushing to the other meeting, work session to that. I don't know, maybe is this unprecedented? How long is there, well, maybe Mary would know, or maybe Tom, has there always been, as far as we know, two regular meetings? It's always been first to the third?
As long as I've been on the board.
There's been two a month?
We would occasionally only have one, occasionally. And I think that prior to that, just anecdotally, because I don't know, before I was here, I think there was a time when there was just one regular and then two if they needed it.
I'm just wondering what the shift was.
Since I've been, there have been two.
I've always been two on my time, it seems like.
The reason was to change it to two in the first place. If there was some. See, this is.
I can remember on occasion where the second one has been canceled because it's fallen on a holiday week.
Right.
Or couple board members may have been unavailable that scheduled week, and it just was decided that for that particular month, there wasn't
Yeah.
a need.
There were also times when there was. So it.
Or the first one, like July, I think about July, the first meeting in July, following on, the fourth, as it has, that too would have been postponed if not canceled altogether. Well, no, I'm in, it seems like it could be potentially unanimous. Just to clear up though, what the other meeting, the work session meeting, or what that other, so we would keep in place the regular meeting, and as proposed, it would be the third Wednesday. But I'm a little fuzzy on what the quote work session unquote meeting would be for the first, or are you gonna retain that, or what is?
Yes,
What is?
the proposal is to retain it, and I may have that mixed up, but I thought we agreed that.
Regular first one in case.
The regular should be on the first Wednesday,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, sorry, I messed that up. So that will be on the first Wednesday, and then leaving us the second Wednesday if we needed to have, well, reserve it obviously for work sessions, necessary work sessions and or committee meetings or whatever. But also if we needed to have a regular session for any reason, we could also then have another one on the second Wednesday if we needed it.
So all members, all six of us would be at that one too, at the work set, well, at that, the first one?
I guess it depends
well.
on what the topic, if it's a committee meeting, no.
For policy, just the three of you
That's
probably.
fine.
Right.
I think the intent, David, was sometimes it might not be necessary, sometimes it might just be three on a committee, but at least for the six of us, keep it penciled in on the calendar. Because that's just for convenience of scheduling. If we get to a topic and we're like, we need a work session,
Mhm.
rather than doing like we had to, with someone like the general manager hiring experience, which all of us comparing our calendars and trying to find the next day available. It's, hey, if there's nothing on that third Wednesday, lock it in.
Well, I think it kind of plays into item number.
Thank you.
I think it also kind of plays into item number two. If you're gonna put certain things on the consent agenda, you're gonna want to establish the regular cadence for, say, finance committee meeting, because you're not gonna be getting anything other than the information in your packet. So if there's something there you want to ask questions on, or something there the team needs to point out, you're gonna want that on a regular cadence, and then maybe we do a full-blown financial update in the session quarterly, something like that.
So would it only be, thank you, would it only be then the policy committee? Are there other committees? I know we had
Economic development.
it would be, so it's not just.
Finance.
Finance, yeah.
What about the community? What was that? The
Engagement.
community engagement
Well, we have those on Monday, so.
They're quarterly.
quarterly, but it may fall then on that Wednesday. Could we? shift
No,
the date?
no, they,
You wouldn't want,
no, because all of the ambassadors, I mean, we have to be accommodating to their time as well.
okay.
And that's, we're in the second year of their 2-year appointment, so. We have the schedule laid out for that one.
All right, will we enumerate what the work session or what the policy committees will be, or it'll just be open subject to?
Well, that's my point is, I think this paragraph is probably, Angie, probably don't need it,
Or
I guess.
you don't, or if you want something to codify the intent of we're going to use this, you could make it general that the intent is if needed to use it for, as you stated earlier, work sessions, committee meetings, a second, another regular session. Or if not needed, you wouldn't have to use it if you didn't need it either. Or you could use it to make up a holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just have a hypothetical. I'm on the finance committee, I think. Would it be something that I should get with our finance director and see how he would like to do that, other than say reporting quarterly to the entire board?
Well, I think it's the board's pleasure how often or, not often you want your committees to meet. I specifically brought up finance because it's as fiduciaries, it's something you're always under scrutiny about.
Right,
So
exactly.
I think the reason that one of the reasons that the finance committee maybe stopped meeting as frequently as it was is you were sitting in here, hearing the same presentation that
Right,
got given in the regular session
Exactly.
just an hour later, right?
right.
Right.
So if you're not gonna have that, every month, you probably need to convene the committee,
Okay.
bi-monthly or something like that.
Okay,
All right, so you might be one
I'm sorry, I just wish
Yeah, we
she
were
did, she's the
just-
chair, and she said yes.
of, okay. So I guess then whether or not the second paragraph is kept entirely, and again, how that would fit if there's a regularly scheduled slot, for public information, with the public, should the public expect notice of the potential meeting, but of course, it's being postponed or whatever for that other meeting.
It's always noticed, the meeting's always
They're
noticed.
all-
Notice.
David, Angie, Beck, tell me if I'm off base on this, but I think we could have something that says the third Wednesday shall be reserved for these things if needed, right? What was the list before? Was there Angie? It was, if you need to have a second regular session for committee meetings, for work sessions. And I guess if we had look, last year we had some things pile up on us. If we needed to do a 2-hour work session on the third Wednesday, but also come in at 5 on the first one. And
Yeah.
we're not cutting off the other. I personally, I like it. One, because I'm someone with a day job and it's, I know others feel this too, but sometimes you're rushing from that to get here for a 4 o'clock or 4:30 or, even 5 sometimes. But also just from a future board member, I want being on this board to be accessible to as many people as possible. And then I know not everyone wanting to watch along or listen along or come in person has the same working hours, but I think we don't get a whole lot of folks, tuning into some of our work sessions and the things at 4 o'clock or 4:30. And I don't expect we're gonna get 50 people on the Zoom, but anything we can do to make it a little bit more accessible for folks, because frankly, a lot of the really important work happens when we're doing these meetings and that, the official action takes place when we're in the boardroom, but people really want to get a sense of the discussion. It's a lot of times it's in here.
But all of these meetings are obviously.
Yeah, archived as well, yeah.
They're archived as well and they're available to the public.
And I guess the other thing we talked about in the policy committee meeting that we haven't talked about too is when we do a regular session, there's a lot of staff with their obligations to be here for every single one of those, right? And we have a work session on a Wednesday. It only need to be the team members, who, are relevant to that particular topic of the night. So some of the team would get a Wednesday off more often than they do right now in the evening.
Sounds good to me. So when will we be taking this up? Should we be looking for a decision for that decision to adopt this? What's protocol for the adoption of this particular proposed amendment?
Well, the rules of procedure will have to be modified. The language will have to be modified. That will have to pass by, obviously, everyone will have to be comfortable with the language on the board. And then I presume, Angela, we would have a resolution to approve those modifications.
The rules be modified?
The board rules of procedure. So they're basically the board policy rules. I don't know why we call them. I know that there's procedure in there, but I feel like we should call them something else, but whatever, it's that.
You would have gotten.
You should have one of those.
Right, and it states,
It states these things in there. Yeah, I took that language
okay,
out of it.
Okay.
And that's what I drafted the proposed language from.
Thank you.
And this language will have to be worked on based on this discussion. So what I'll work to do on, at least with respect to that issue is, which we obviously have 2 more topics to discuss, but is have that language ready for board review for the next meeting for adoption. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Topic 2. Consent agenda. Ma'am?
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past, and this sort of gives us a framework to adopt a consent agenda if the board wants to. These would be the routine things. They're listed there, at least some of them are listed there. Those are the kinds of things we're thinking, but as discussed previously, if we would include the financials as part of the consent agenda, there'd have to be two other components, right? The board finance committee would have to meet on a regular basis, somewhat regular basis. And then also, as Jeremy suggested, perhaps we would have a quarterly review of the financials presented to the full board at a regular session, or I guess at a work session. Well, if we had to vote on it, it would have to be at a regular session. Yeah. So that's just, and obviously, if anybody wants to pull an item from the consent agenda, eligible to do so, any board member can do that. So, and the consent agenda would be developed by the board president and the general manager.
And that. Questions, I mean, for me, for the pulling from the consent agenda, how would that request be made? Can it be made? I guess be made to me at this point or to the GM because they need not divulge, which member need not divulge. Well, normally it can be done anonymously and not to request publicly.
It's normally done in public.
I was gonna say, why would we?
Yeah, it's very, usually like.
I don't know what I'm trying to hide.
Very informal before,
Right.
the president would say before the consent agenda is voted on, does any member, and usually you might want to consider letting the general managers will have the ability to pull an item. And then that person just says, yes, I'd like item number 3 pulled. And then someone else will say, I make a motion.
Or
Is that in there?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. Oh, didn't read that over
Yeah.
yet, sorry.
Well, I'm just,
And then you vote on, someone makes a motion, I move that we approve all remaining items.
I've only been accustomed to if a member or somebody of a body did not want to have consent or wanted to pull something from the consent agenda, that it would have been done. Not necessarily with divulging that member with the reason for doing it, but it's the consensus that that member, whomever it might be, who wishes to pull from the consent agenda, that it be there, then fine. I'm just saying that other protocols, which I've been accustomed to, have allowed the member without divulging their reason until that discussion board comes up
Well, I feel like if that's the way you guys are doing it in the Senate, in the state Senate.
in the legislature in the house.
I mean, really,
House, you identified your student.
That actually,
Raise your hand if you wanted something full.
Really?
No,
so it's just the Senate where you guys are hiding from.
Those guys,
yeah.
they're all senile over there. No, sir.
Well, in our case, it would probably just, you would need more understanding or further discussion about that. So it wouldn't, to me, it wouldn't matter who.
Yeah, you're not derailing anything by
Yeah.
saying, hey, there was something in the financials. Can we dig into that? You know, have an actual,
Yeah, it's probably just,
still up for, it's still on the agenda.
Right, it's still goes to the agenda discussion.
The quarterly financials will be on the agenda,
Yeah,
not on the consent form.
Yeah.
but the approval of the monthly one would still be on the consent part if it's not. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So if you got your packet and you're like, hey, I noticed something, I'm not on the finance committee, can we just pull this so that I have, can ask them, you know, a question that, you know, in the meeting?
do you need Tom?
All right. So is it consensus then, or are there other questions on the proposal for consent agenda? Or do we want to tweak any of the language? Would that be a resolution that everyone's comfortable with being drafted as is?
The only tweak I was gonna suggest is on. Maybe we have this discretion anyway, but like we unanimously passed out the customer service policies, but I don't think like if we had a consent agenda, it would have been our intent to say just, or maybe it would have, no, but can a committee unanimously pass something without designating it to go on the consent agenda?
You could
Pass it for the full board.
Does that make sense?
pass it, but for it not, yes, but so I think we could add some language that
Like if it's of
the board
enough
may recommend.
substance that we don't want it to just fly on, with everything else, but there to be a, hey, publicly, we all want to vote that, yes, we want to adopt this thing.
That's-
Right, we recommend it, but we want you to discuss it. Yes, I think you could say that in alternate, the board may also vote unanimously to not have it on the, or not the board, but the committee could,
I mean, obviously, any of us could still just go ahead and
yeah.
Remove it.
remove it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a moot point.
But that could definitely be in the language if you wanted it.
How would we, I
Also, I would tell the board members, hey, look,
see what you're saying, Brett. So how do we would have to figure a way how to word that or how to make that plain in here in the language. We've agreed among ourselves and I guess
What I
that
understand
it
is
is.
Unless otherwise directed by the committee, any item or.
unless other direction is provided in the motion to approve.
Yeah, and then
A motion approving the item.
Okay.
Nope, gonna need to repeat that.
Oh, it wasn't very artful. Unless language to the contrary occurs in the motion approving the item. Then any item, I mean, again, not very artful, but
Well, do you mind, Angie, wordsmithing that? You understand the intent?
I understand the intent, yes.
Well, I'll take a look at it, you and Brett. Just,
I've already forgotten. So is the intent to bring these back to the policy committee or you said this earlier, but I didn't write it down. We'll get it. Yes, okay. So then, and I would.
Well, I mean, to the extent we have a consensus on the changes.
So then this would be a new rule in the book, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't quite look where to put this one. But I mean, we can find a place for this one and then we know where topic 3 goes, so that'll just have to be revised as well.
anything else? Item 3. Public comment section of the regular session meeting. What do you think, Ms.?
So this is in late 2023, I think that's when it was, Tom. We bifurcated the public comment section. We used to have just the public comment section at the beginning. And then the policy committee met and we introduced a little bit shorter time at the beginning for folks. And then also a comment period after the agenda items are discussed at a regular session. And what we think, we've gone through that now, right? And I think that we had a flavor of that. And the question is, do we go back to one public comment section, which the current proposal, I think, is to do it at the end of the agenda items. So not at the very beginning of the meeting. But we understand that there's folks who come in with billing issues or concerns or, the issues that folks come in to address to the board. If they need, and not all those folks want to stay for the entire meeting. We understand that. And so we're trying to be accommodating to those folks. If we can have like a sort of a revised sign-in sheet where, they just indicate, I've got a billing issue or whatever it is, they need to meet with customer care team member or whatever. And they can indicate that, and they can still just meet with those people out in the hall at the beginning of the meeting. They don't need to come up, tell the board what their issue is and then go and have, Jeremy direct them to customer care or whatever. So, and then so we go back to just one public comment section, but it would be moved to at the end of the agenda items. So then they get, if folks want the benefit of what's ever on the agenda that night, they have an opportunity to provide comments on that, right? We know that we get a lot of questions. We're running a slippery slope with that legally. And to the extent that folks have questions, those questions need to be directed to Jeremy and the rest of the team and not to the board necessarily. I mean, there are some things we could answer.
Or to the public.
Pardon?
Or to the public.
Or to the public, or to, right. So that's the thought process behind it. And again, the policy committee thought that this was the way to revise this and essentially, I guess, maybe still accommodate the public and into a public comment section.
I think that for the majority of the questions at the end of the meeting that were supposed to be about what was presented were not. And I know you called the last person, David, and I appreciate that because he wasn't asking a question at all about anything presented, but something entirely different. And you kind of called him on it and in the next meeting, he didn't do it. So I feel like, that would give if we did it that way, that would give everybody in the room who wants the opportunity to maybe complain about something that happened. And also the opportunity for people who had a question about something that was presented.
Right.
So,
But if it's somebody who's got, literally a billing issue, they're bringing their
Right.
bill there or whatever that is, we see this all the time. And they don't want to stick around for the meeting, but they still want to get the help that they came to get. Then they can either stay and still do their thing if they want, or they can immediately go and get customer care help and be on their way.
So where then would the public comment section be?
It would be after the agenda items,
After everything,
Mhm.
the agenda for those.
right, before board
The
comments.
thought being that at that point, they can talk on whatever they want, but they've heard the item, so if they want to use that time. Right, because otherwise, put Tom and now you in the position on the second round where it's like, to what level do we police how on topic this is? Which is,
it just,
Hard to do.
like they weren't on.
And those who are there for a real meeting, no, I'm sorry, those who are there for the meeting can enjoy the meeting without, craziness.
So
I just hope that it doesn't evolve into a situation where people start coming in, signing up the sheet, and then it's more like having the lobby being open and having a customer service there to handle all these issues that they come up with.
Well, I'm sure the customer service team will direct them accordingly. I think they would really be responsible for making sure that they understand how to appropriately contact customer service during regular business hours and not have to wait till the meeting to do so.
You talked about too, and it's here about the last sentence is editing the sign-in sheet to include that is if you're here and all you have is a customer care issue, then note that on the sign-in sheet, because when that gets brought over to us at the table to call, I see visitors 1, 3, and 5 are here because they have an issue with customer care. Here's Abby, here's Gabi. You go out in the hall with them right now, get your issue addressed, and you don't have to sit through the entire meeting if you don't want to. Now, if you choose to, you can come back in the list,
That's right.
right?
Yeah,
But you'd be taking care of those folks that come in with those billing questions at the podium.
that's kind of how it used to be,
Yeah.
really.
So do we enlarge sign in then at any
That's what I'm
point during
saying.
the meeting up to that? In other words, right now we have sign in when you come in.
Yeah.
But this way, we'd have to enlarge that to if they came in, because they didn't want to be there during the bulk of the meeting. But if they came, so in other words, they might sign in after 6 o'clock.
oh, I see, since the comments aren't until the end.
Right, so those that
Is there-
are signing in, we're gonna be addressed with their billing issue or whatever. But then for those who really want to speak to something else, they wouldn't necessarily have to be there at the beginning of the meeting to sit through the whole meeting.
My personal opinion on that is if you're coming to make comments to the BPU board and you might have to sit through a couple of extra minutes of people dealing with and going out to customer care that's not gonna be dealt with in front of the board, you can sit another 5 or 10 minutes. You're coming to the business meeting of this board of directors, and that's fine.
Well, it's not a couple of minutes. I think we're saying moving to the end of the meeting entirely to.
Right.
So. May not
But
be.
we're allowing them to speak about whatever the issue they have and or also on the agenda items. So,
So I've advised our general population to at least tune in. They can call in and listen to at least hear where they are. But if they really feel like they're coming to speak in person, they've always known they had to be here by 6.
Talking about,
they're coming to a business, I mean, they should be here by 6. I understand not everybody can be because of a work schedule. I get that.
Right.
But like, to decide that I'm gonna roll in here at 6:45 because that's after the agenda section, personally, I think that's disruptive. And again, if you have a work issue, you can't get off, I get it, but
David, are you suggesting a cutoff on when one can sign up, or just that we need to be cognizant that someone might sign up at 6:45?
I would think that the cutoff would be prior to the list being brought over from Chris or whomever. I mean, just before it's time for the public comment section. For those who have not already been seen, which will have already been seen through billing or whatever, but that they would be able to be heard at the public comment section.
I think you're hitting on something that could be important there too, which is part of the intent is having at the end is if someone wants to comment on something that was presented, right now, they have the opportunity. Hey, I heard something, I have a question, or I have a comment about that. They can, I think, sign up mid-meeting to make a end of meeting comment right now, right?
Right, since we're consolidating.
Right now, they don't even sign up.
I guess they have
They're
the
just ads.
for it.
They're just
Okay.
ads right
Yeah,
now.
that
Does
is,
anybody else want to make any comments on the items presented? That's.
I think that stems from, and I think this is important to remember, when we were having a large crowd of people and then somebody would be presenting and people in the audience would just start talking and be disruptive. So we said, okay, you can ask, instead of just talking to one another and talking out loud while we're trying to conduct the meeting, we'll allow this spot for you to ask those questions of us or,
provide comments.
yeah, or provide comments, not questions.
Because I would caution two things. One is whatever rule you decide on the time, the cutoff for comments, that it needs to be enforced across the board
Right.
and not, you can't arbitrarily enforce
So
that.
I think
And then-
that's what she's getting at is when you allow the questioning and you respond.
Yes, that's
And then
her
there's a second question and you respond and there's a third question. Well, now the time, somebody could argue, well, I didn't get that much time.
Right.
I got stopped here, but you just gave this person 7 or 8 minutes.
And then if
That's gonna be
you-
5 minutes, period.
You also get questions that are beyond the pale, right? That you don't want to answer. But you've answered questions previously. Once you start editing on content, you're gonna, that's problematic. So if you're gonna answer questions, you're gonna have to answer all of them. So I would recommend you remind them it's their time to talk. Then every board member has a closing comment period. You could say, well, I heard the comment, or I heard the comment about the lobby hours, or I heard the comment about this, and I would encourage you to contact so-and-so. You could address some of those then, but once you start in the back and forth, it really, I just have to warn you that is really dangerous territory.
so for example, if one commenter asks, hey, how many days cash on hand did you have? And I say, oh, we had 124. And the next one says, is it true, board member Parker hates puppies? I can't then choose to say, I'm not going to dignify that with a response
Right.
because now I've arbitrarily chose.
Based on
Exactly.
content, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we'll update the instruction.
Do you really?
I do not. I like,
I mean, that'll be in our.
Of all ages.
So at the beginning, when we read off what we're doing and what we'll allow with that will be underscored at the beginning of
to
the.
your point earlier, though, is the easiest deadline for when you have to have signed in on the sign-in sheet before the sheet, the cutoff is when we get through the last agenda item and the sheet gets walked over. Because otherwise I'm trying to think if someone has a comment on the last agenda item, what the appropriate way for them to,
Then
because otherwise we're just opening it up.
Right, right.
Comments.
Right.
Well, I think we should have them sign in and not just have walk up, because everybody will line up at the mic, or it could potentially.
And
And
then
I
do
think
you
he's
do,
saying, when do you cut that sign off period off, because if the list gets walked over just as the last agenda item concludes, what if somebody wants to sign up because they want to talk about that agenda item? Have we given them the chance?
Could there be a prompt of, hey, we've reached the last agenda item? If anyone was wishing to make public comments,
So you sign up.
now is the time to get your name on the list.
And it might also be wise to say, and for those online, please raise your hand if you want.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they have the extra time to the end of the comments. So there are two different time frames.
Yeah,
Chris, did you have thoughts on that?
that's good. Yeah.
Thought was that, number one, we have copies of the agenda by the sign-in sheets that for anyone to take so that they see what the agenda items are. And then the last thing on that, on those team reports is miscellaneous comments. So you have your agenda items, but still you have that miscellaneous comment section where they would have that time to comment.
That can be kind of a buffer. Makes sense.
Does anybody remember how we got to the second one in the first place? I mean, who?
Yeah, I just tried to explain that.
Okay,
When all those people were coming and then they were just having private conversations while we were trying to conduct the meeting. And so we decided, well, we'll
It just-
give you the second.
Have the public, we'd have the public comments first.
Yeah, all right.
And then we have the agenda items, and people are out there saying, they want to say something about the agenda items.
Yeah.
And we say, no, public comments are over with, you can't,
right,
you can't talk, you can't say anything.
So we add.
So we added the,
but it's been less than a year.
well, it's been
Um,
about a year.
Been a little over a year.
Not much more that we have not had the second one in the first place. I mean, it's kind of new.
Yeah.
to have the second. one.
But it seemed like, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but the comments were never about the agenda items. They were about, did we get money for?
Second shot at the public.
Did get our money for FEMA when we didn't discuss FEMA.
Are we
So-
looking
Yeah.
challenges on the?
Yeah, so
Zoom in?
from the tech standpoint of this, like if I'm sitting in the back and I see somebody raise their hands, you know, like I'm keeping track of whose hands are up. Is there a spot where I should say, like, just note, like, these three other people had not had their hands up and ignore them? If they put their hands up at that, after that given point?
I think so.
I think that's the only fair way to do it is whenever we kind of make the last call,
Right.
is the chance to raise your hand or put your name on the sign-in sheet.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't think that's has it?
yes,
It has?
once, yeah,
Okay.
there was, it was with Bill, I was sitting in the back and it was way after the comment section and somebody put their hand up and left it up for like 10 minutes.
Hmm.
So, and I just, there was no point to bring him in.
Right.
You know, I guess kind of in that vein, I don't think this board has ever decided what do you want the technology operator to do if something becomes inappropriate? Because they have the ability to immediately mute them.
I've been given direction to look to the GM and Angie, and if I get the symbol, like signal, just like cut them off.
Right.
So that's,
And usually it's fair, so, I mean, it takes something fairly extreme to cut them off, right? It's best if they've been given a warning, you know, if you don't, you know, if something, I think one use of profanity is probably not enough, but if it's very profane, at that point, you know, the president might say,
Here's your warning.
here's your warning, we're going, you know, I'm asking you to stop and we're allowed to stop. So that would be, you know, unless, or of course, if it's something like it is a threat, then I think it should automatically be cut off. If it's a physical or the threat of physical violence, then
right.
that's a different category than just saying, you know, I don't like them because blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to get them
Sure.
is a different category where I think you can act immediately without warning.
Are we feeling consensus, though, that we do want to move back to the one public comment section, and that would be at the beginning, at the end of the agenda prior to board comments. And that public comment section would have to be signed off on then just prior to that. And that those that sign in at the beginning who have some specific issue, billing or otherwise, can do so, but then not be at the end. Is that pretty much the consensus?
It can be directed to staff. too.
Would be
Yeah.
to the team. Is that pretty good? And can we work that into a resolution, or would that need to be? Actually, that may not need.
Need to be changed in the policy book.
And when you read those instructions in the beginning, that has to be changed.
Yes,
That's right.
that would be reflecting that, right?
I do think the not answering questions is gonna have to be the exercise some restraint on that part.
Well,
When people ask a question, you're like, oh, we could clear this up right now. Probably I just have to remember Jeremy can clear this up right now, because if I know the answer, he surely does.
It just.
But it is hard when you're sitting there,
Back and
like,
forth.
oh, I could be helpful in this moment.
Right, and I think one thing that I've heard done in other meetings is, no, now is your time to express your opinions, we're making, and I see the general manager's making a note,
Yeah. Which solves the problem of us accidentally taking up their allotted time too.
Right.
That's the thing, the timeframe
it's very
gets
difficult.
over.
well, and one of the other things that we talked about very briefly in the policy committee meeting was, I understand the hesitation for folks who are from the public who are commenting to use their addresses. However, unless we've asked an outside party to be there to do a presentation for whatever reason, I don't think non-BPU customers should be commenting at our board meetings. And the example that I gave in the policy committee meeting is, if I'm Springfield Utilities, I don't want someone from Camdenton coming up because Evergy's providing me service in Camdenton. Why am I entertaining? Why do you have anything to say to us, this board at all? We have no jurisdiction over your services. And just because they are a resident of Wyandotte County does not mean that they're taking our services. And in fact, I would argue that if they don't receive services from BPU, they don't contribute to BPU's revenue. So Angie, I don't know what you think about that, but
I'm not sure that you can
Right.
cut them off for that, but you could certainly taste, weight the comments differently in your mind, in your, how you respond after the meeting. But so getting the address would give you that information if they work, or you could have them state whether they were a customer or not. Now, whether you'll have accurate information from everyone, I'm not sure, but I think I will certainly research that. But I'm not certain that you would be able to cut off non-customers from speaking.
And we,
And an example might be an environmental issue where they say, oh, well, I'm downstream.
The other carve out I was thinking is if someone lives in the service area and they are attempting to sign up for service, but have been unsuccessful for some reason.
but if you're square in Evergy's territory,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can't
right.
provide you service because we can't.
No, that part makes sense to me.
I agree with the intent here. We do bill for services
I understand.
that are ours, but we collect it, we send the bill, we process it. That, I don't think we discussed how to,
Aren't they wholesale customers?
you could have a
I mean, who's our end user?
stormwater
customer?
customer only.
Who's our end user customer?
You could have a stormwater user customer only. Because they just own a hunk of property. And all we're doing is sending the bill and collecting. the bill.
and the thing is, we have to remember, we are a part of unified government. That was made very clear to me at our.
But the territory of BPU is not countywide. It's not. I mean, as a board member who's at large, as is Mary, we don't run countywide. They can't elect us.
Like I can't run in
Right,
Edwardsville.
right. Or Bonner Spring.
or Bonner.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with the intent. I just,
Yeah, we don't want an adversarial
I will
relationship.
have
It would
somebody
be-
do some research.
We don't want an adversarial relationship with Bonner or Spring. We want to maintain a.
No, I'm not. Oh, anyway.
So, the drafting of that is forthcoming then, I guess? On the agenda, the items, I want to thank you again, the three policy. I think we almost sound unanimous for the good work that you did. It's excellent. At least in my opinion, and that seems to be unanimous. I look forward to the forthcoming resolutions and having them adopted, streamlining and making more efficient and, our meetings and, our content and, our interaction with the general customers.
one thing I might add. You did put on there, should we try to identify the purpose of each meeting
Yeah,
in the notice?
after I put that on, well, in the notice, I think maybe.
And then back up to section 1. Where you talk about the frequency of the meetings and you talk about a legal holiday, should we add something to the effect of, or for some other unforeseen circumstance?
Mhm.
Outside of that, I think it's all.
Any regular calling upon a legal holiday or some other unforeseen circumstance,
Yeah, like it
Or
could,
in the event of some other.
like weather or something.
Well, like APPA or AWWA, when half of the members of the board are out of town attending a meeting and you don't have a quorum to conduct.
In person,
weather sometimes is
right?
true.
But it may be a big item that it's not going to become. There won't be all the information in until the next meeting,
True.
the timing may be.
But to your question, identifying the purpose of each meeting, I think you kind of covered that. I mean, have a regular meeting, so I think that that's been, that we've kind of hashed that out. Yes. Anything else for the good? We got about 5 minutes left. We have to rush to get from one to the other, but that's all those days may be over soon. Before we adjourn, let me share my regrets and apology for missing the last meeting. Mea culpa. I thought that I normally look at the meetings that we have. I look through the missives that we get on the email. I know we talked about it in the last one. I completely forgot. And I did not have it on my agenda, though we talked about it. I take all responsibility and I just want to apologize. It's something that doesn't happen. I did not see it listed to have the Zoom link as I look for everything. And I apologize to each of you for that. I don't want to see that happen again. And
Thank you for your apology.
I heard you did good work in my absence. in
Well,
the
thank you for
absence.
apology because I did nominate it to be tar and feather, but but we just said, we'll wait till next time you do it. So make sure it don't happen again. We will.
Okay, I hope to drill down and make sure that the line of communication, I get it through, get my emails and what those are, or whatever. Won't let that happen again.
Thank you, sir.
I did want to extend that. Okay, and not anything else?
Especially the roads.
Anything For that, then entertain.
I move that we adjourn.
Wait a second.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Roll call, Waits,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley.
All right.
That motion carries.